Hello, everyone. I'm Chief Meteorologist McCall Vrydaghs, the host of Cloudy with a Chance of podcast. My co-host, meteorologist Kirsty Zontini, is on maternity leave. So today's episode will just be me hosting. And I have a very special guest that if you're a fan of Channel 7, then you're going to know this familiar face. But there's a reason why we brought this guest on, and we'll get to that in just a few moments. But I wanted to let all of you know that Kirsty is doing great. She's been on maternity leave by now for almost 4 weeks, and her daughter Molly was born, and just adding to her cute little family that she has at home. So now let's get to why we are here. And the one and only meteorologist Dante Jones is with us. He is my partner in crime when it comes to evening weather at Channel 7. He has been with WHIO TV for 2 years now. And you can see him Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at 5:30 and at the noon. And then he also does the 6 and 11 on the weekend. So welcome, Dante. I don't remember if we've actually ever had you as a guest before, have we?
Yes, this was actually when I first got here, it was the whole team. And so we were all on just sort of so you all could introduce the new team.
That's right. I remember that.
But I haven't been on since then. It's been a while.
Well, we are so happy to have you on today. And the reason that I asked Dante to be our guest is because it's the month of February. It is Black History Month. And if you're watching this visually, then you know that Dante is a Black man. And so I felt it fitting to...
Shocking.
I thought it would be a great idea and a time to talk about diversity in specifically the meteorology broadcast industry. I know personally as a female that the percentage of women in this industry is on the lower end. And then when you go to talking even as female chiefs, I believe it's 8% of the industry, you'll find a female chief. I don't know the statistics for diversity of non-white, but I know that it is very low just because I can see all the stations. But I wanted to kind of get your perspective about that. But before we take a deeper dive into that conversation, I think it would be really great to get to know Dante if you missed that episode when we introduced him a couple years ago. So Dante, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you're from and how you ended up here?
Well, I'm from Akron, so I am a Buckeye. I'm from Ohio, so just used to a lot more snow than the Miami Valley gets. Up in Northeast Ohio, we get all the lake effect snow. So, I'm from Akron, and I was a jack of all trades, really, in all honesty, as I was going through high school and even middle school. I just liked so much. I was interested in so many things, and even through college, I was interested in a lot of stuff. But by the time I got to college, I had kind of made up my mind what it is I wanted to do. But the interesting part is I had always known that I wanted to be in news. I was always a news junkie. Even as a little kid in middle school, I would sit and drink tea or drink coffee and watch the news. And so I'd be watching CNN headline news and seeing what's going on in Lithuania and Azerbaijan and Estonia and Latvia and all those countries. And my friends like, Dante, you're such a geek. Come on. And so I knew that I'm like, I want to be a news anchor. And it wasn't because I have a big head and I wanted to be the guy on TV. It just, the job just looked fun to me. I just wanted to be, I was interested in the content. I wanted to present it. So I wanted to be a news anchor. But then as I got older, I was like, I don't know. I mean, I still want to be a news anchor, but I don't want to go to school. I want to go to journalism school and be a reporter and all that stuff. Yeah. I just want to deliver the news. I'm Ron Burgundy. I just want to have good hair and deliver the news.
Right.
So I graduated from high school, and I took a year off from high school to college. And I was sitting on the porch and like, gosh, what is it that I want to do when I go to college? I mean, it's going to be next year and I want to figure something out. I don't want to be one of those where I'm in college and I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm there for years and wasting money and all that good stuff. And literally the light bulb went off because I got really interested in weather. I had always been interested in weather, but it really became sort of a fascination with me in that year. I was sitting on the porch with a thunderstorm and reading a weather textbook for fun. And so
Nerd alert.
the light bulb, right, exactly. So literally light bulb just clicked on, and I said, why don't you just blend the two? If you want to be in TV news and you're really interested in weather, just be a broadcast meteorologist. And
Yeah.
there it was. I knew going into Ohio State that that's what I want to do. I want to be a broadcast meteorologist.
That sounds somewhat of a similar path with myself. There are a lot of people that you talk to that are meteorologists, and they say they knew at 8 years old, they were obsessed with
Yeah.
tornadoes and weather. And for me, that wasn't the case either. I was really all about like the drama, you know what I mean? If there was a camera, I was in front of it. Or, when I got into high school, the theater was like what I was doing. And I thought I was going to go on Broadway. But in high school, then I found that love and that passion for like the earth sciences and more specifically weather. And late bloomer for me. Like as I was getting to that 11th, 12th grade year, that's when I was like, you know what? Why don't I blend the two? I love to be in front of the camera, and I also love science, so I can do both of those. And I think that it worked out. I think, maybe that's why we're kindred spirits, I think.
Right. Exactly. I mean, and it's rare that I think sometimes where you can take your passions and your loves, because you have so many things that you're interested in, you can take a couple of those and really blend them nicely together and make a career out of it. So for your love of science and your love of being in front of the camera and sort of performing, if you will, that's a nice blend. My interest in news and interest in weather, and I guess my sense of performance as well, just really, I'm a people person. I'm a social butterfly. So that serves me well in this industry, in all honesty. And people ask me sometimes, what is my favorite part about this job? And surprisingly, it's not the being in front of the camera part. It's not the being in studio, because, when you're at home, you look at the news and you hear the music and the jingles and you hear the commercials and the news and you think, it's just exciting in the studio. The studio's pretty quiet, except for us talking to each other, other than that. And it's the same thing every day. This job is pretty repetitive. A lot of people, when you think that you watch your news at the same time every day, you go online and read the weather at the same time every day, you listen to the radio at the same time. So all those things, it's pretty repetitive. You got to get this done every day. It's actually going out to events and meeting people that, being the social butterfly, that is my natural personality. That is the best part about the job to me.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, that side of meeting the community. And at first it is a little odd when you first get into the industry and people talk to you like they know you, because you're literally in their home every day.
Right.
And it's weird that they're so familiar with you, but you're not so much with them. But over time, you get used to that part. But like you said, the being in front of the camera thing is just a small percentage of what we do on a daily basis. So it is, and there are two other great things about it. Weather changes every day. So you're always learning. You never reach a point where you feel like you know everything and you're bored. That's not right. But also our type of job most of the time is not a job where there's big projects that you're working on and you have like long range things that you're working toward. You go to work, you do your job, and you get to go home, and then you get to, have a good work-life balance in that sense. It gets a little crazy in severe weather season. You're on call a lot more in my position as well, but you're also excited about severe weather. So, it gets you amped up. But I want to,
and that's one of the positive things, not to cut you off, but that's one of the positive things about this career. And I think probably any career that someone chooses to go into is that you have a passion for it. And so when you do work the longer hours, not all the time, but when you do work the longer hours, it's still rewarding. It's still worth it. It's not one of those where I'm busting my hump at this job that I could care less about. And I'm working 12 hours a day and making minimum pay and all that stuff. This is actually a job that we love. And so working the long hours and like you said, you get to learn, that not every time, not every storm is alike. And so certainly back in, the tornado outbreak that we had, there are things that you learn that you didn't know before. And you go back and you study this like, wow, I can't believe this.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the impact that it has on people, it's the community service part. I think that is the most fulfilling of our job. But I wanted to ask you, because I know personally, when I told my mom and dad that I was going to pursue a career to become a broadcast meteorologist, they were like, all right, we're supportive, but didn't think I was actually going to be able to do it. And I think there's several reasons for that. One, the industry is so small, and it's hard to picture all of these people going for the same dream, and how am I going to be able to do it? And then also, again, for me as a female, you don't see a lot of females, and it's hard. And even now that I'm in the industry, it is hard when you become a mom, and all of those things, and the stress of, being on call and all of that. What was your family's reaction when you said, I'm going to go into broadcasting? I'm sure they weren't surprised that you were going to take a broadcasting,
No,
lane, but was there any shock when you said that you were going to go for something even more narrow as to broadcast meteorologist?
They weren't surprised at all, in all honesty, because like you mentioned, I had already made it known ever since I was a kid that I liked news and broadcasting. And so it wasn't a shock that I was going to go into that. And weather wasn't a shock either, because I think I had already started to talk about weather and express my interest in especially severe weather. I mean, no one really takes a severe interest in sunshine, torrential sunshine every day. It's those fun weather events that are destructive and tear stuff up that we're all interested in. Like, wow. Mm-hmm. So no, they weren't really shocked at all. And so even looking at today, sometimes when I'll go home and some of my family members will look, especially if my grandmother has a tape of me on or something that a DVD that she likes to play over and over. Sometimes the family say, wow, we can't believe that, as a little kid, you've always said that you wanted to do this, and now look at you doing it. And sometimes, every now and again, I'll sit back when we can take a break from the everyday duties of the job, and you just kind of have a moment to reflect, and you're like, wow, I can't believe I'm doing this. I still see myself sometimes as that little boy that's sitting at the dining room table and turning to cameras and pretending to read a teleprompter and do the news. And so now I'm here.
I know. It's pretty incredible. But now let's get to the topic of diversity in the industry. I grew up in the New York City market, and, it's number one market. They're very, great about having diversity. So I grew up not really having a idea of how little the diversity was out across the country. And now that I work in the industry, I see it more, and I see it more even as a chief meteorologist. And when we have to hire people and looking for the pool of people to hire, there's, the category, there's a lot of white men in the industry looking for jobs, and that can be difficult for them as well because there's so many of them. And then female, and then anybody that's non-white, there's such a smaller pool. Did you realize that going into the industry? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I did realize it. And I've always been, like I said, I've always been a news junkie. So, even growing up in the Cleveland market, which is, for a lot of folks, I don't know if you know about TV markets, it's it goes by city population. So New York is the largest city, so it's market 1, LA 2, Chicago 3, so on and so forth. And so Cleveland is market 19, so it's a pretty good sized market. And even growing up and watching the local news, I would see sporadically Black news anchors. I watch Lorna Barrett, Tony Harris, Leon Bibb, stuff like that. But you didn't see a lot of Black meteorologists. As a matter of fact, I think the only time that I even saw a Black meteorologist wasn't until I got older, and say maybe the Weather Channel. And that was, by that time I was in either late high school or that year between college and high school. So it was a while. And now it's starting to increase, but it's just one of those type of fields that, you really didn't see a lot of Black face. Now, that's not to say that maybe in some places where there's a higher Black population, even though there's a pretty high Black population in the Cleveland market, but maybe Detroit or Baltimore or New Orleans or something, had a Black meteorologist, but I certainly didn't see one until I was older. I think that it's changing a lot. Still hasn't caught up to the level of where, we'd like it to be, but it's changing. You're starting to see a lot more women meteorologists. You're seeing more Black meteorologists, even Black female meteorologists, which is, and as a matter of fact, I think the first Black meteorologist that I saw was a Black female meteorologist on the Weather Channel, and her name was Orlean Sidney.
Hmm.
And so I remember seeing her and saying, wow, you don't really see a lot of Black
Yeah.
female meteorologists. And
Yeah.
so the fact that they had one on, and Janice Huff, she's been at NBC in New York for a long time, and she's the chief at that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there are strides that are being made. But we still got a way to go. And I don't know why that is, in all honesty. I don't know if we're just not interested
Yeah.
in the science of meteorology, or we just don't. I don't know, in all honesty.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, because I think about it as a woman, obviously I saw female meteorologists. Um, there was always a kind of stigma that girls don't do science and math. They do more artsy and home ec
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff. But over the past few decades, you're seeing more and more women starting to get into the sciences. And it's not like anybody told you, women don't do science. And maybe it was just that you just didn't visually see it represented that way. And now that you are seeing it, more and more girls are like, oh, yeah, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And I wonder if
Mm-hmm.
it's the same for, Black men and women and anybody else that's non-white, starting to see the representation when you're a child. It kind of is just put in your brain that maybe that's an option, of something that you
Mm-hmm.
might be interested in doing down the line. Have you had an opportunity? I know you have. So this is kind of like a rhetorical question. Speaking to young Black men that are interested in weather, and what kind of advice are you giving them?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple that we had here
Hmm.
that over the past couple of years, and the advice is that, well, first of all, um, just being honest and being real with them. One of the pieces of advice that the late Chris Bradley at WBNS 10 TV told me when I interned for him is he said, look, if you really want to pursue this, if you really want to do this, you have a very good chance of going far because there is a need and there is a desire for diversity.
Yes.
Because a lot of TV stations want to put someone on TV that represents their market and
Hmm.
that represents the people that are watching them. And so that's one of the pieces of advice, because to be honest with you, there's always a chance of, am I not going to get hired because of my skin color? Am I not going
Hmm.
to get hired because, someone who they may feel is more qualified because this person went to a more prestigious school or a higher education level or what have you.
Hmm.
But the fact now that a lot of TV stations are saying, look, we want to be the representation of our market, of our
Hmm.
city, of the eyeballs that are watching us. And so if our city's population is chock full of diverse people, we want to make sure that we go after them and hire them. So the good thing about pursuing a job and a career like this is that you have a success rate that is on the increase because employers are actually looking for you to
Right.
diversify, whether it be a Black female or male, or whether it be Hispanic or what have you. And so that's the positive thing that I tell them, is that don't feel like there's not a future for you. So if you
Yes.
want it, go for it. And then secondly, I'll tell them, in all honesty, it's TV. It's a visual medium. And
Hmm.
so you want to work on yourself. You want to work on how you present yourself and how you present the content matter that you're producing and that you're showcasing. Because if you can't make it interesting, people aren't going to tune in just because you look like them.
Hmm.
You want to keep them captivated. We
Yes.
all have Black and white people that look like us, but if they don't captivate us, we're turning the channel.
Yeah,
So getting
exactly.
getting in the door
Yeah.
and getting the representation is one part, but then you want to work on, and then on top of that, I think it's important to be out in the community, be out
Hmm.
in your community in particular. So I don't ever want to be this standoffish, hoity-toity, hi, I'm on TV,
Yes.
far away. No, I'm one of you. I'm a person
Hmm.
of the people. I'm living in the same neighborhoods, shopping at the same stores, going to the same gas station. So you can see me, and just how you see me on TV, that's how I am in person. So you can approach me,
Right.
and you can have a conversation with me. And so that way you can say, all right, I'm a regular person. Dante's a regular person. if I want to do that, I can do that and not
Mhm.
feel like I have to not be myself to do that job.
And I think that that is hitting the nail right on the head. And in this industry is being yourself. You know what I mean? And television is one of those industries where they are looking for that diversity, which is wonderful, you know, to be able to collectively show, you know, the community that we are the same and we are here. But also that you're human and being able to touch the community in a way um, that, you know, maybe in the past wasn't that way. I don't know, but it's nice when you get the comments from people that say, hey, McCall, my daughter loves watching you. And then it's inspiring to me because for whatever reason, but you know, because I've red hair and their daughter has red hair, you know what I mean? Or
Right.
I'm a
Yeah.
girl and they see somebody in the sciences. And for you as well, you know, black girls and black boys like saying like, oh, I could do that someday if I want to.
Mhm.
And those are really wonderful comments to get because then there's a purpose. You know that you're reaching beyond. And I think it's wonderful. And then I hope that we start to see more and more diversity in the industry because it needs it. That's what I think, quite frankly.
And you know what, though? And I think you hit the nail right on the head because, and I don't know how many, emails and letters that you've gotten from, little girls who have said, you are an inspiration and I
Hmm.
would love to do that, whether it's meteorology or broadcasting, what have you. But I have had, people tell me that my son or my daughter is interested in meteorology because the way you present it, you make it seem so down to earth or so
Hmm.
understandable or relatable, or the way you carry yourself, you're so approachable and you make it seem like it's a fun job to do. It's not one of those jobs where, going through college when you're learning the calculus and physics makes you want to pull your hair out.
Yeah.
But when you
Yeah.
present on TV, you're not presenting the calculus and physics and talking so, the equilibrium level of the,
Mm,
stratosphere. You just say, hey, look, this is a job that I've learned it. I went through all that, but here's how it's relatable.
yeah.
And so that makes someone say, I think I want to do that. That seems so fun to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. And I think that it's just that that's one of the best parts of our job is being able to inspire people. You know, I've had the opportunity to go to events like the Girl Scouts of Southwest Ohio, and you're just filled, you know, before the pandemic, this room filled with all these young girls and being able to talk to them. And that was awesome. Then I remember the MC of the night or the one of the main speakers was Dr. Mae Jemison, and she was the first Black woman in space. And how inspired I was by her, and just seeing all of the girls being inspired by her as well. It just that is one of the best parts of our job, I think.
Right. Right. And I
So
remember you doing that, and I was so jealous of you because you got a
you,
chance to meet Mae Jemison. And I had always wanted to be an astronaut. Now,
Mhm.
ever since I was a kid, of all jobs, that was the number one job that I wanted to do. I even wrote NASA when I was in middle school, and they sent me this whole big packet with information and pictures and all this stuff. And I knew the astronauts by name. I had a favorite astronaut and everything. It was great. And until, I came to my senses when I was older, because my favorite astronaut, his name was Bruce McCandless, and he flew what was the Manned Maneuvering Unit, or the MMU. And so it was a seatless chair that they flew out in space where you could be untethered from the
Oh
space
my
shuttle.
gosh.
So he went to MIT and he majored in electrical engineering. So when I was small, I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to MIT and I'm going to major in electrical engineering. And so then when I got older, I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not doing that.
It's funny because I wanted to be an astronaut as well when I was a little girl. That's what I thought I was going to be when I grew up. And then I realized I don't like to fly. So like
Okay.
it wasn't the math and science. It was like I actually like my feet planted on the planet. So
Right.
I like have a hard time just getting in an airplane. I'm certainly not going to be able to leave
Exactly.
the planet and be in outer space. So.
That's funny.
Oh my gosh. Well, Dante, I mean, this has been amazing. Where do you see the industry going, as we move into the decades to come? Do you see, more diversity? I do. And I mean, is it exciting to know that you're part of that history?
You know what? I do agree with you. I think as the country becomes more and more diverse and more people are becoming more upwardly mobile, I think that a lot of folks are going to look at our job and say, that is something that I've always wanted to do. And I even hear it from adults,
Hmm.
who say, I've always wanted to do that, but I
Yeah.
just never pursued it here, never done it there, what have you. But I think as you see more and more diversity in the country in terms of our population, I think that you'll see more upwardly mobile people and more people who look at us and say, I like that person. This person makes it relatable. And as we get out and talk to people more, do things like this on a podcast or on TV or in a group setting at a function somewhere, they'll become more interested and say, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. If they can do it, if they, have charted their course and they've told me what they've done and I can relate to them, I'm going to do it too. Because
Hmm.
weather is one of those things, especially nowadays, it's becoming increasingly volatile.
Yeah.
We won't even talk about, climate change and what have you, but I mean, it's just becoming increasingly volatile. And a lot of people are looking for explanations on what's happening in weather. And they're fascinated by it as it happens not only in their backyard, but across the world and across the country, that people are going to say, I'd like to study weather. I'd like to see what makes weather tick, what goes
Hmm.
on. And then they look at it starts with their local meteorologists because they don't know meteorologists at the National Weather Service. They
Right.
see us
Right.
firsthand and they say, all right, I think I want to do that. I think I want to see what makes weather. And I think in college too, when you have to take some of those, GCs and depending on what, career path you're taking and what major you're taking, you may have to take an introductory to weather course or what have you.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes that'll get the juices flowing of,
Yeah.
wow, weather is interesting. Maybe I want to change my career and go into that.
Hmm. And I mean, going back to what you just said a few moments ago, local meteorologists are probably the first that you're going to see that might inspire you. And it may feel like if I were to send Dante a message, he's not going to respond to me. That is the furthest from the truth. And same for myself. I know everybody on the team, we answer our emails. The email address that you see on the website, it goes directly to us. And we will respond. And if we don't respond because we missed your email, you send us another one and we'll respond to
Mhm.
that. So I
Right.
would say if you have any questions about weather or you just want to reach out to Dante to just, ask him questions about the industry. How are some ways that they can reach you? You're on all types of social media and you have an email
Absolutely.
address. So why don't you tell our
Right.
listeners and our watchers how they can reach the awesome Dante Jones?
Yeah, if you can email me, dontae.jones@cmg.com, Dante.Jones at CMG, CoxMediaGroup.com. That's my email. And so you can certainly email me. You can, I'm on Facebook. I have a couple of Facebook pages, Dante Jones TV, WHIO Meteorologist Dontae Jones. I'm on Instagram, Dante Jones WHIO. I'm on Twitter, D Jones WHIO. So I am pretty active on all those platforms. So even if you send me an inbox message or a comment or what have you, now because I have so many social media pages, it may take me a while to respond back.
Yes.
But I will respond back. In all honesty, I'm pretty, as I said before, I'm pretty approachable. I
Yeah.
know that the conception, you know what? Let me just put, everyone's different. So.
Mhm.
Just as you see us on TV, and I may have an outgoing personality, it doesn't mean that everybody on TV has an outgoing personality. This
Right.
is just our job. So some people may be a little more, shy and standoffish and what have you, and may not check their social media as much because not everybody is interested in social
Yeah,
media.
yeah.
But I am pretty approachable, pretty social media friendly. So certainly reach out to me and I'll do my best to reach back out to you.
Yeah. And that's why I said reach out once. If you don't get a response, reach out again. I promise you it's not Dante or myself or anyone else on our team being rude and ignoring you.
Right.
We have a lot that goes on. We get a ton of emails. I'll say that much. The
Yeah.
emails are filled to the max. But I always know when Dante's responding because I follow his Twitter account and my phone will blow up and he's responding to like 20 people. So he does respond.
Yeah, usually
He does
I let him kind of
respond.
pile up for a minute. When I get around, I'm like, yeah.
Like,
and
Dante's had
sometimes I'll
some-
think about you and chuckle.
Like Dante had a little time. He's now going back through his messages. Oh man. Well, Dante, thank you so much for joining us. And
Thank you. This was a lot of fun.
yeah, it's so fun. We have to have you on more often. But I do
Definitely.
think that it was great to have this conversation with you in Black History Month and representing, your people in the meteorology world. It's such a nice thing. And I just hope that in the future we see more and more.
Yeah, and I really think we will, in all honesty.
I think so too. As always, thanks for watching and listening to Cloudy with a Chance of Podcast. I'm Chief Meteorologist McCall Vrydaghs. My co-host Kirsty Zontini is on maternity leave. She'll be back in April. If you want to go back and listen to past episodes, you can download, subscribe, and listen on your Apple Podcast app. You can check out our video versions on Google Play as well, or that's our podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, and WHIO.com. Or if you have any streaming devices, just search for the WHIO app there. We also have the video version. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.